program now. Please continue to serve yourselves with coffee and water, everything back there. But we'd like to ask everybody to please turn your cell phone to silent mode. My name is Ben Dupuy. I'm a member of the BGR Board of Directors and chair of the Breakfast Briefing Committee. I'm pleased to welcome you to BGR's third breakfast briefing of 2022 and our first in-person event in more than 2 years. It's great to see everyone here again at First Horizon. We also welcome those of you who are watching today's event online. This is our first live stream of a BGR event. I also want to extend our gratitude to WWNO, New Orleans Public Radio, which will rebroadcast this event Thursday, May 19th at 9 p.m. We hope our audience members here and online will take advantage of the question and answer portion of today's program. We've also provided instructions for submitting questions using the Slido website. If you prefer to write your question, please hand it to a BGR staff member in the room. Include your name if you'd like to be identified. The best way to stay on top of all BGR events and research is to become a member. BGR is a private, nonprofit, independent research organization dedicated to informed public policy making and the effective use of government resources for the improvement of government in the New Orleans metropolitan area. We regularly engage with our members about public policy work. BGR values this dialogue, and we appreciate our members' support in amplifying BGR's good government recommendations. If you're not currently a member, visit bgr.org and consider joining the ranks of concerned citizens working to improve local government. We also encourage you to follow BGR on social media. And now to introduce our topic this morning is Becky Mobre, BGR's President and CEO.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you, Ben. I'd like to express our gratitude to First Horizon Bank for its generous sponsorship of BGR's Breakfast Briefing Series again this year. Your support allows BGR to make these events free to the public. It is wonderful to see everyone here today and to have a chance to introduce myself. My name is Becky Mobre, and I have been BGR's president and CEO since mid-January. I am thrilled and honored to lead BGR during its 90th year. BGR's research reports identify solutions to some of the most complex and significant challenges facing local government in Orleans, Jefferson, and St. Tammany parishes. In the coming months, we'll be releasing reports about the governance of the jail in Orleans, the structure of the Sewerage and Water Board, and the use of the federal pandemic relief funds. Breakfast briefings further BGR's mission by allowing citizens to hear directly from officials and experts on public policy issues vital to the greater New Orleans area. While we are returning to in-person breakfast briefings today, it is also our third and final session in our special breakfast briefing series on public safety. BGR launched the series in April with virtual breakfast briefings on Zoom. The first event featured data analysis of crime trends, as well as discussion about the impact of poverty on public safety. Our second event brought together local and national experts to discuss community-based strategies that can complement law enforcement and create safer neighborhoods. If you missed these events, please visit bgr.org to watch video replays of them. Today, we will continue our conversation on public safety by hearing from law enforcement leaders in Orleans and Jefferson Parish. Superintendent Sean Ferguson has led the New Orleans Police Department since his appointment by the mayor in 2019. He previously commanded NOPD's Police Academy, as well as the 2nd and 4th districts. He holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's in criminal justice from Southern University, New Orleans. The department has operated for nearly a decade under federal oversight, and it has now reached substantial compliance with almost all required reforms. The federal court has indicated that it could begin this summer phasing out the oversight of NOPD over a 2-year period. This would be a major milestone for NOPD. At the same time, NOPD faces significant challenges in recruiting and retaining officers, as well as controlling a surge in violent crime during the past couple of years. Meanwhile, Jefferson Parish voters first elected Sheriff Joseph Lopinto in 2018. He previously worked as Chief Criminal Deputy and Commander of Field Operations at JPSO. Early in his career, he served as a deputy and a narcotics detective. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a law degree from Loyola University, New Orleans. The Sheriff's Office is the chief law enforcement agency in Jefferson Parish. The Sheriff's Office also operates the parish's 1,200-bed jail and an accredited crime lab. JPSO faces its own pressures to maintain its patrol ranks and prevent increases in crime. These two factors drove the tax that voters recently approved to increase pay throughout the Sheriff's Office. Here to moderate our discussion with Superintendent Ferguson and Sheriff Lopinto is Jim Letten. Jim served for more than 30 years as a federal prosecutor, including serving for 12 consecutive years as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Louisiana. At the time of his retirement in 2012, Jim was the longest-serving U.S. Attorney in the nation. As U.S. Attorney, Jim worked closely to support NOPD, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, and other local law enforcement agencies. He is currently a partner with the Butler Snow law firm in New Orleans. The views expressed in this program are those of the speakers involved. Thank you all for joining us today. Jim, the floor is yours.
All right, Becky, thank you so much, Ben. Good morning. Is my mic on? Am I good? Testing. It's not? Okay. Sounds like, yeah, it's on.
Oh, got it, huh? Oh, now it's on.
Now it's on. Okay, good. So with that, Becky, thank you so much, and to you and Marcy and Ben and the whole BGR team, I'm a big fan, and thank you guys for making this possible. This is a privilege for me, folks. Especially sitting next to these gentlemen that I'm going to be talking to right now. First of all, thanks so much to Butler Snow, that a great firm that allows me to do work like this, and also, and I see represented in the audience today, Metropolitan Crime Commission, Police and Justice Foundation, and Crime Stoppers, great organizations on whose boards I sit and who really contribute so much. Is this okay? So much to public safety. Now that's better, right? I got one that works. Thank you. With that, let me offer a very special thanks to these two gentlemen on a personal level. I've known them both for a very, very long time. The most important thing to me is, the two men sitting here, Chief Sean Ferguson and also Sheriff Joe Lopinto, are men of enormous integrity. They're proven leaders. They are outstanding leaders. When I had the chance to do this, I jumped at it because I hold them in such high regard and because of the incredible work they do. And they do sometimes the impossible in protecting us all. So thank you both. So let's talk about, let's set the stage a little bit for some discussion. Talk about obviously the current spike in violent crime. If you look at MCC's recent, stats that they put out on May 8th, I think 5 months into 2022, we're up to 104 homicides, and this is Orleans, but obviously the spike is affecting the whole area. Homicide showing the sharpest increase across the past 3 years, up 148% relative to 2019, and 93% relative to 2020, and carjackings, of course, are significantly up as well. So we find ourselves in Orleans and also our sister parish, Jefferson, in a significant violent crime surge. And in fairness, this is to an extent a national phenomenon, but there had been for a while a downward trend in crime, but we're seeing that bounce again. We've also seen spikes before. I think, many of you remember, one of the most serious spikes we saw was the return of the population to the area in 2006 after Katrina, when some of the violent drug gangs started coming back. And we reached Orleans at the time, we were at, I think, 72 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants for a short time, which gave us, a bunch of us, a chance to visit and talk to Congress. So with that recent history, to each of you, gentlemen, What do you see as the primary drivers or contributors for this phenomenon, for the sharp spike in violent crime this time around? And we'll start, Chief, you want to take it, and then Sheriff?
Not sure. Is my mic on?
Is your mic on?
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you want to use this.
Okay, good deal. Thank you. Good morning. Let me start by thanking BGR for having me, giving me this opportunity to speak and have this conversation with my partners. In New Orleans, what we have seen over the last couple of years, of course, that as a result of the global pandemic, we have had a fractured criminal justice system to no one's regards with regard.
Yeah, they can't. They're having trouble hearing.
Okay, to no one's fault, we've had an impact on our criminal justice system with regards to the global pandemic. We have not had court for the last couple of years with the inability to gather, and as a result, that has created, in my opinion, a certain criminal element when it comes to the mentalities of our criminals today. They fear no consequences. They fear that there are no accountability measurements in place. So therefore, that embodies them or emboldens them to commit more crimes. Outside of that, also, what we've seen over the last couple of years, a spike in gun sales. As a result of a spike in gun sales, we've also seen a spike in, I would say, individuals not being responsible with their weapons. Just this year alone in New Orleans, approximately 20-25% of our auto burglaries, although we don't have a significant spike in them, but 20 to 25% of our auto burglaries, a weapon was taken during the course of that crime, which means more weapons are being placed on our streets that we have to try to combat and address. So it's just a matter of us continuing to try to do our due diligence through our partnerships, being smart with our resources to address this. But to answer your question again, Jim, it is about what we have seen over the last year or two is just that inability to hold individuals accountable, and now we're starting to do that, and as such, you're starting to see a difference in our crime.
Roger. Thank you. Understood. Sheriff?
Am I on? Yeah, I'm on. Okay. So we've been lucky in Jefferson Parish. Our crime rates have continued to drop year after year, which, look, we started off in uniform crime reports. Our peak was back in the 1990s and 91. We had 31,000 uniform crime reports that year. We were at 9,700 in 2020 for the first time ever getting under 10,000, and we're at 8,500 total crimes that occurred, not total crimes, total UCR crimes that occurred in 2021, the lowest year that we've ever had. I'm waiting for that to change, y'all. Let's be real. It should be coming back up. 8,500 is extremely low for us in Jefferson Parish. But when we're dealing with violent crime, we're dealing with such numbers that change. I just gave an example a little while ago. We had 16 armed carjackings or armed robberies with vehicles in all of 2021. In January and February of this year, I had 11 in 2 months. All right, we got a problem, right? Not really. 9 of those 11 were within a 4-block area committed by one individual, responsible for 92% of our armed robberies and carjackings. We were able to put a task force together, set up cameras, go in that area, caught him in the act. March 3rd, he went to jail. I've had 2 since then, right? The numbers will drop down completely because you got that one individual off the street. And so the spike is being done by just a small group of individuals. And I agree with the chief of when the system's not working well, you've got to have those individuals off the street, whether it's a narcotics charge, whether it's an armed robbery charge, whether it's a murder charge. They're off the street. And when you take them out of the game, the stats can catch back up, right? We've got probably a little bit of a surge in Jefferson Parish. When I say that, I was very, very low in 2021, probably arbitrarily too low. We had, I think, 18 murders at the end of March compared to 14 murders at the end of March the year before. So my homicides are up a little bit from last year. Where they'll fall out at the end of the year, I don't know. We keep getting called. I wish we had the ability to prevent crime, but our response is after the fact, and so we just count the numbers. But our ability to try to decrease that violent crime is to be able to catch that individual after his first or second to prevent that third, fourth, and fifth one from ever occurring, because you can see that that individual can create havoc on the stats very quickly.
Thank you so much. That helps us. And again, I think all of these explanations by these two leaders is going to help us understand the dynamics of crime, and that's what we're here for. So, as a former prosecutor, law enforcement, before we can apprehend the people you're talking about, and before we can put together evidence, we need leads, right? We need to find out where the individuals are, who they're likely to be, where they are. So, talking about the importance of citizen participation, a couple of questions. First of all, regarding tips, anonymous tips, whatever, excuse me, from the community, how do you see the value of citizen reports, tips, et cetera, in investigations? And more importantly, how do you believe this resource can be better utilized, if at all? Because again, you have the Crime Stoppers portal, right? But you have, and you also have direct reporting. Chief?
So, I have to use this, I forgot. So, I mean, we, meaning law enforcement, we cannot do this alone. And I've said this before, it takes a village. The communities, the members of the community know beforehand who those bad actors are, who those bad actors could be. So we have to rely on that information. And after the crime has occurred, they know who has committed that crime. So to get that information, either anonymously or direct, it is very important. It is huge. I mean, we are not embedded like we want to be in the community. So we have to rely on our partners within the community to give us that information. So in using that and utilizing that information, of course, there's this concern with safety for the person who gives that information. That is exactly why we partner up with Crime Stoppers and encourage any and everyone to use just that. Just point us in the right direction. You point us in the right direction, and it will lead to us making that arrest, and as what the sheriff has said, preventing that individual after he or she has committed that first or second crime from committing that third, fourth, or fifth crime, because that is what I like to call the 5%ers. It is not everyone in the community. I would say approximately 5% of the individuals within our community that is wreaking havoc, that is victimizing our community. So we have to rely on that information, and again, utilizing that resource, but also utilizing technology as a major part in making sure that our city is safer.
Chief, thanks. Sheriff?
Our tips are only as good as the information that we receive from it. I'll give the example of, most of y'all will probably remember the Oshner nurse that was beat up a while back, right? In the news. So that comes in through a Crime Stoppers tip. We have two individuals, two brothers. We know it's a family member. The problem is the family is about 15 kids, and so we don't know which ones, but we end up getting two different names from different anonymous tips that come in. A person comes in and identifies one of the brothers as that's the guy wearing the hospital mask, and that's who it was. So we utilize that information to get an arrest warrant, put that person in jail. Once he's in jail, listening to the jail calls, the determination's made it probably wasn't him, it was probably the other brother. So he was released, that charges were refused. We went go speak with the other brother who we had tried to speak with before. He ended up getting some charges on the other brother, bring him in, utilize his cell phone, and sure enough, we ended up having him wearing the same outfits on the same day and pictures in his phone to match him up to, the actual suspect and making it happen, right? So it really just depends on the information. The tips give us the ability to lead us in the right direction. Doesn't mean they're always right. Doesn't mean it's always correct. Doesn't mean you're going to get the smoking gun and be able to recover it. But it gives us the information to lead us in the right direction. Remember, law enforcement's not present for probably 95% of crimes. We're showing up and collecting those puzzle pieces to put the puzzle together to be able to give to the district attorney and then eventually to a jury. And so those tips are extremely important for us to be able to say, okay, are we going in the right direction? Sometimes we may have a theory on a case that's leading us one way, and a tip comes in and gives us something to go, wait, we didn't think of that. You know what? We need to go this other way. And it's very important for us to be able to have that information.
So it sounds like obviously then the tips, the intelligence, as it were, right, that comes from the field, comes from citizens on the front end during investigations is extremely important to you all? Would you say it's a critical component of what you do?
You know, it depends on the case. The answer is, but yes. I mean, most of the time we are looking for any bits of information to say what direction we need to go to.
Right, and I think I guess say more on it, elaborate more on that. The sheriff's alluded to it. It doesn't matter what you know. The slightest little bit of information that you may have, you may not have seen everything, but the slightest little information that you may have can help us go into the right direction, lead us to the right individual or individuals who were committing these crimes.
Great, thank you. Let me jump into something that's near and dear to my heart, I think, also, and that is recruitment and retention challenges. Obviously, having a department large enough with enough trained police officers is critical. And of course, you have two components, right? Recruitment and retention. I see Melanie Talia and Kevin White out there from Police and Justice Foundation as critical to the recruitment effort. And of course, Melanie and I both taught at the academy for many, many years, at the NOPD Academy. So with that, let me ask, what do you believe in your respective departments, what do you think your most compelling departmental recruitment challenges are, and how difficult is it to meet these recruitment goals? Not necessarily retention yet, but just getting good people in, recruiting, and being able to get those officers trained and on the street.
So I believe our biggest challenge in New Orleans is recruiting locally. I am a big advocate for recruiting locally because I know that through recruiting locally, you have those individuals who have that vested interest in your community. They're going to stay here and be committed to ensuring the safety of your community. Through our partnership with the New Orleans Police and Justice Foundation, we recently were able to hire 2 recruiters in their office to help us focus on just that. We have so many special events that we host in the city of New Orleans. Sometimes we have to pull our detectives and our recruiters and others from their primary responsibility to assist with the safeguards that we put into place to host these major events. So through having these additional recruiters outside of that, those recruiters just stay within their location and continue to recruit. This is a national challenge. And it's something that we continue to try to overcome. I mean, we lost over 150 officers last year for many reasons, for either going to surrounding agencies, leaving the profession altogether, or retiring due to recent legislation affecting their retirement or their pension. And we've only been able to hire just over 50. So it is very important, and we're like re-energizing and refocusing our efforts into recruitment, just moved into a larger space to really build out our recruitment efforts and taking a deep dive into what our process looked like from the point the applicant fills out that application to the point in which they enter the doors of the academy, and see if there's something that we're doing or could be doing differently to bring more applicants into this pool.
Thank you, Chief.
When it comes to recruitment, it's perception. Raise your hand if you support the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. Pretty easy, right? Now, raise your hand if you want your son and daughter to grow up to be a policeman. Humbling, isn't it?
Humbling, huh?
You know, and that's the reality, right? It's an honorable profession. They do a lot of good work on an everyday basis, but perception can become reality sometimes. You know, when I went through the academy, we had 88 graduates. And I've got 26 starting the academy right now. You know, the amount of applications coming in, especially in this environment when everyone is hiring, becomes a different story. We've got to stop watching the news and, you know, telling us all the bad things about it and understand what the good things we do on a regular basis. So it's perception. You know, our men and women aren't going out there every single day and getting shot and doing stuff. Do they put their lives at risk every single day? Of course they do. But the things that they're handling on a regular day basis help people a lot more than hurt every single day. And we've got to change that perception, right? I've got to have more hands going up in this room when we talk about law enforcement for the future of, instead of discouraging the sons and daughters from saying, I want to be a policeman, I think you want to go to law school. I want to be a policeman, I think you want to do this, right? We've got to encourage that instead of discouraging it. We have the ability to change that next generation through our actions today, with the same reasons that we're running around the travel ball and doing everything else in between. We influence our kids' actions. Influencing in them for the future is a big part of that.
So let me turn just about a click, right, to retention, the retention piece, which is the corollary to attrition, which is something, and I think, Chief, you touched on it a little bit, and Sheriff, you did too. That's a problem, right, the drawdown. And I don't know how this, I can tell you that Melanie and I, when we teach the courses at NOPD Academy, for ever since Katrina, I've asked every class to raise your hand and tell me which ones are from where. I don't think I've seen a single class where at least 50% weren't from really elsewhere. I'm not just talking about the region, but elsewhere. Interesting phenomenon, but we still lose a lot. So my question is, what specific challenges that contribute to attrition, to that? What keeps you up at night? And what do you think would be your preferred solution? Or what do you think might be the best solution? Pay, conditions, upward mobility, whatever, to maybe throttle that attrition back. Sheriff?
Well, I think hopefully I'll have a little bit better ability to be able to prove that with the millage just passing for me. That was a big problem for me. I would always lose people to state police or federal agencies, and truthfully, I'll encourage them to go if they have that opportunity to be able to make that happen. But Jefferson Parish, thriving the way we are right now, property values the way they are, put yourself in a policeman's thing making $50,000 a year, you can't even afford a home in Jefferson Parish. So now they're moving to the suburbs. They're in the suburbs working. Now they're 15 years in. Their kids are at school over there, and that suburb is also hiring and paying the same rate that I'm paying. Well, guess what? They're gonna move because they can move from that sheriff system to the next sheriff system. It doesn't hurt their pension whatsoever, and they're moving over. I've got to be ahead of the game to give them less options, right? It's hard for an NOPD person to leave New Orleans and come to JP when they're making $20,000 more. Well, if they're making only $5,000 more, it's easier. Well, I'm the same boat from Jefferson Parish to St. Tammany or Slidell. And so having that millage pass for me gives me the ability to move up that ladder around the smaller jurisdictions and hopefully be able to keep those 15, 20-year employees, if they're staying within law enforcement, stay in Jefferson Parish.
Great. Chief, what attrition issue keeps you up most tonight, and what would you like to see?
His millage is keeping me up at night now. So that is the new challenge now.
He's got a prison to run too.
Yeah, right? Yes. So we still, we all join from the same pool. So we have to be creative in what it is that we are doing. I think part of our retention efforts have been, challenges have been more what the sheriff alluded to before, on another level, perception within our department. Thinking that many believing that we are overzealous when it comes to discipline. Of course, we have to be accountable. At some point in time, when our accountability is perceived as being more overzealous than usual or other agencies, we begin to lose officers. What we've seen here in New Orleans, too, going back to that recruitment effort, we've seen a lot of our officers who have moved here from Illinois or California, things of that nature, stay here for 2 years, and then they're going back and jumping to the top of their hiring list of the agencies in which of the cities that they are coming from. So that is why I continue to push for recruiting locally, because we know when we recruit locally, that vested interest is here, and they are pretty much compelled to stay right here and do something for their city.
Great, thank you. Now I'm looking. Marcy's back there doing this, which means I got to stuff a couple of questions into a couple of seconds. So let's talk about, we're still talking about enforcement because there are important issues here. Federal-state joint resources, federal state joint task forces as force multipliers. I know we did it when I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, FBI, ATF, DEA, and both of your departments doing great work out in the street, especially because most of the crimes that we're talking about, carjackings and drug-related homicides, et cetera, are both federal and state violations. Do you have those working? Would you like to see them improved? What could help you in terms of force multipliers coming from a joint federal-state operation, if at all? Chief?
So criminals have no boundaries. We have jurisdictions as a law enforcement agency, but the criminals do not. They do not see that. So to have these partnerships on a local level, on the state level as well as the federal level is a great force multiplier. I mean, we started out this year with a 36% increase by the end of January in violent crime. In February, in noticing that, we enhanced our violent crime abatement investigation team, which is a team initially comprised of just the FBI, state police, and NOPD. We brought in those other partners that as you just mentioned, DEA, ATF, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the District Attorney's Office. Since then, we began to see a decline. End of February, 21% up in violent crime. End of March, 8% up in violent crime. End of April, 6%. As of today, we are up only 2% in violent crime. While we do have this spike in homicide, we cannot be distracted on the fact that we are doing some great work on the state and federal level, and that is due to the partnerships through our fusion center with the state, through partnerships with the sheriff and other municipalities around the state, right here in the metropolitan area, and our investigators are speaking on a daily basis, and as a result of those relationships, we're able to really stop some of this surge that we've been seeing recently.
Sheriff?
You know, I think the FBI director was in town last week, and we had this exact conversation of what we can do a little bit better. I'd like the federal government to pick up more of our state cases. Our task force do a great job of making federal cases and making that happen, but if they can actually pick up our state cases, for example, our carjacker that we had 9 counts on, it gets that individual out of my jail. It has the ability that I'm not overcrowding another individual. So instead of me with the court systems as backed up as they are with COVID, I'm overcrowding every day, but I have the worst of the worst in my jail system right now. If I could take 20 of those and make federal cases out of them, that opens up 20 more individuals I can bring in from burglaries instead of having them 20 individuals for armed robberies, and opens up that door to try to get some more downstream people through a system instead of overcrowding them out the door, which I wouldn't have done 5 years ago.
Marcy, can I ask a one-word answer question? Okay, Marcy's going to kill me, right? But real quick, years ago, I remember asking Newell Norman when he was sheriff, what would be the one thing you'd want right after Katrina? The one thing, if you had one thing today, he said, blew me away. He said, mental health resources, mental health, substance abuse, in incarceration and out. In a word, if you could have one thing today, whether it's money, but federal funds, whatever, any one resource you'd like to get, in a word, what would you like to see?
Parents.
Parents? Mm-hmm. Parents, okay.
Parents.
From the sheriff, parents?
No, I'm still with the mental health. I mean, we definitely have that issue with mental health.
Okay. All right, you're there. Marcy, are we okay? Becky? I think it's all yours. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thank you.
Wish we could do this. Well, I know we could do this all day, but thank you all. This is helpful.
Oops. Thank you, Jim. Oop. How do I turn this?
Would you like this one?
It's on.
It's on? Okay.
Well, they say it is.
Thank you, Jim. In keeping, there we go. Testing.
Mine's working.
Should we now?
Testing? Oh, here we go. All right, we're live. Thank you, Jim. In keeping with BGR's tradition, we have questions for from the audience. A number of them have come in. Let's see. Sheriff Lopinto mentioned that sheriffs react to crime, not prevent crime. How could the city and law enforcement be more proactive in preventing crime?
Well, what I'll say is, I can't put somebody in jail that hadn't committed a crime yet. Our job to prevent crime is solving crime quickly to prevent the next crime from happening. That I want the individual that committed the first armed robbery, the guy that committed the 9 armed robberies for us, he has 0 criminal record. How are we ever going to prevent that crime when he decides that's to happen, right? It's not going to happen. Now, what I wanted to do is catch him after the first one, so I prevented number 2 through 9 from ever happening, right? And so our job isn't to prevent crime, it's to solve crime quickly to prevent that individual from committing another crime. And that's how you decrease the stats. You know, we put a lot onto law enforcement. I don't know where the next crime's going to occur, and neither do you. If you can tell me where the next murder is going to occur, I'll hire you tomorrow, right? Tell me where that's going to be. My phone's going to go off in the next 2 weeks, and they're going to tell me I had another call for service at a location. If the person that getting killed doesn't know how to prevent the crime, how is law enforcement supposed to know how to prevent the crime, right? It just doesn't work that way. And so, I think we utilize that as what can law enforcement do to prevent it, right? There's a whole bunch of socioeconomic things that we can do to get people out of the ability of wanting to commit crime. But I don't ever put it on law enforcement for our ability to prevent it. Our job is to be able to solve it. Go out there and see who committed that crime, and unfortunately, most of the time, that's after the fact.
Chief?
Okay. So what I would say to that is, I agree with what the sheriff is saying. I mean, we cannot necessarily prevent because we do not know exactly where it's going to occur. The best that we can do is try to saturate areas in which we know have certain trends and hopefully deter criminal activity to the best of our ability. But when an individual have something set in their mind to do, they're going to do it. And it is our job then to identify that individual, hopefully with the help of the community, to hold them accountable. Once you do that and hold that one individual accountable, it should set a standard for the rest.
Okay, all right, we've got a bunch of questions from the audience. Great. Okay, if you could make 3 recommendations to public policymakers to quickly address our current crime trend, what would those recommendations be?
Well, for the city of New Orleans, my first recommendation would be to amend the surveillance or technology ordinance that we have in place in the city of New Orleans. We have some challenges in which our criminals could use all kinds of technology to victimize our community, but we as an agency can't use technology to solve and make our city safer. So that is one of the recommendations I would definitely do. The next recommendation is invest in your officers. Lift them up. Let them know that you do appreciate them, because they do not hear that. They just see the news and they see what is on the news. And they see the negativity on social media. So lift our officers up. And last, as a result of his recent millage, I would have to say, increase the pay. So that's it for us.
Sure.
Yeah, I think where the chief just brought something on social media. I mean, look, legislation in general is generally not going to, deter crime. I mean, let's face it. Nobody's not murdering somebody because they know it's a life sentence. I mean, they don't think about the consequences before that's the case, and that's not really the issues from a legislative standpoint. But dealing with the I don't remember who said it, but any press is good press, right? Whether it's good or bad, when you're talking about Hollywood stars, and now everybody has the ability to be the Hollywood star, through their own TikTok, and it may be only 5 people that are watching them, but those 5 people are their audience, and so it's what can I do in order to try to be the next star, be the next person, and that's where we're seeing our bigger problems from. It's a game. To some of these individuals. It goes back to what I said earlier as parents, having the ability to get your kid home and actually do homework in the afternoon instead of them, walking home from school and, stuck at the house until 8 o'clock, and, it's the teacher's fault because the teacher didn't have the homework done for them. Having parents to be involved with their kids' lives and get them off of that street to be able to build those habits, will be a blessing to us where we don't have to be involved. Let's face it. I hope we make 0 arrests today. It's not because I think we will. I know we will make arrests today, but I hope we have to make 0 arrests. I hope we have 0 calls for service. Certain programs that we do in the sheriff's office, I'm not the answer to it all. mean, we have our band of excellence, right? Our young Marines, trying to get young kids involved in things to keep them occupied from the options that they have that are out there on the street. Getting them involved in more community types events, keeps them off of their turn to crime later on in their lives. So, that's more important to me than any legislation, I can promise you.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What is being done to prevent people from turning to the streets? Inflation has killed low-income communities, and what actions or resources do you have to help?
I mean, I could start with what I just mentioned. I mean, something that we ended up doing years ago was our Band of Excellence. It probably was up to about 100 students. We utilized the band members from all of the surrounding middle schools and high schools. We actually picked them up from their schools, because if not, they wouldn't be there. Our deputies will take our bands, pick them up from schools. We bring them in 3 days a week. We give them extra training. They not only get a scholarship from the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, the vast majority of these people are attending scholarships. We had our spring concert last week. We've got 7 graduating seniors, and all 7 of them stood up and told me what college they were going to. These are underserved individuals that are all going to college, on band scholarships to be able to give themselves a chance. 7 out of 7, 100%, I'll take those odds every day, right? Now, granted, I probably have 60 kids in the class right now post-COVID. We used to have probably 100. These kids have been to Disney World in the van. They've marched in Rex, and they're a phenomenal group of kids. But it's a small group of individuals. But it starts somewhere, and it's something that we're very proud of.
Okay.
So what we've done in New Orleans, we started the Parish program again, and that is an opportunity for us as officers to interact with our youth, either on a mentoring level or even just playing flag football, something to keep them engaged. But outside of that, I think the other contribution that we have been trying to focus on as well is through some of our social workers and counselors. After a juvenile has been arrested, we work with juvenile court, where we have a social worker program where our social workers actually partner up or team up with these juveniles and their family in an effort to try to identify that underlying cause as to why they're committing these crimes, or what could be done differently, what is needed, if anything, by that family to help deter this child from this criminal life in itself. So that is something that we really have been focusing on, and we're trying to build out on now to get more social workers to be more invested in just that.
Okay. Next question. There appears to be a lack of traffic enforcement in Orleans Parish. Do you see that as impacting violent crime?
So I think what we have seen recently as a result of staffing, I won't say lack of, because we just had I would say traffic. We had one of our other traffic deters in which we did some checkpoints in New Orleans East, and you did see a significant attention being paid on social media as a result of that. And everyone's very happy and applauding to that. But what we've seen more recently is because of the short staffing, officers are running from call to call to call. So now we're changing our deployment. So in the very near future, you will be hearing about some shifts in our deployment that would allow our officers to do just that. We're going to have what we call a district community action team that will be more invested and focus on those types of patrols, while also having that responsibility done by our normal patrol also.
Super. We have another traffic-related question. Are the shootings on the interstate in New Orleans East retaliatory or random? And if random, what can the commuter do to stay safe?
So through the course of our investigations on interstate shootings, what we have been able to determine, they're more intentional. They're not random shootings in which someone is just being shot because they're driving on the interstate. They're actually they're targeting someone in particular when they're committing these acts. So we have provided more presence up there now, and now you're starting to see more cameras up there now. So hopefully deter that act as well.
Terrific. We wanted to talk about the crime labs, Sheriff Lopinto, why does the Sheriff's Office feel that its crime lab is critical for solving crimes? And Superintendent Ferguson, what is the status of the new crime lab in New Orleans?
Getting information quickly is extremely important. We had an overdose yesterday in our jail. Person still alive, but able to test the drugs with suspected fentanyl. But until I know that that's the case, if I have to take that evidence and send that to state police and get that back a month from now, the person that had that drugs in jail, whoever be able to prove they have in jail, is already bonded out and gone. Whether it's a fingerprint, whether it's digital evidence, any of that evidence, we need to be able to have it quickly. And I give the example really quickly of, if this building or this room gets broken into tonight, how many y'all's fingerprints in this room right now? Just because I have evidence doesn't mean I have a suspect. I've got to be able to run those fingerprints, see who they belong to, see who should have been in this room, should not have been in this room. So if those things go to state police and I don't get them back for 6 months from now, it's a lot harder for my detective to determine who was here for this meeting, who should have been here, who shouldn't have been here, right? And so getting that information, whether it's DNA, whether it's fingerprints, whether it's firearms, having that ability to control that evidence, analyze it, and issue a report within hours or days instead of months or years is a lot more important for the detective that's actually trying to solve that case.
Yes, crime labs are just as important as having officers on the street. Our crime lab, we're expecting to open our crime lab next month. Now, when I say open our crime lab, and we have our crime lab, we're already do our own fingerprints. We already do our own digital forensics itself. But when we open up this crime lab, there is a carve-out for our DNA lab. And we've identified funding to buy or purchase equipment for that. But we still have to get more funding for the certifications. And this is going to take a couple of years because federal government has changed its standards for accreditation for crime labs, more specifically DNA labs. And by this being our very first one, it's going to take us some time to build out. While we have a couple of our employees embedded in state police, and we're still sending evidence out there to be processed, what we're envisioning here in New Orleans is what the sheriff has said. We're going to be able to quickly process DNA evidence, and of course it's going to have to be on a priority basis given the rate in which we're dealing with in New Orleans, from just violent crime to narcotics in itself. But nevertheless, within the next month, we will be having our own crime lab, and we will be building out our own DNA lab within that particular crime lab.
And Becky, if I can give a quick example with these gentlemen, too, about the value of crime lab work. We had our federal prosecutors, I think I had more than 50% of my assets working on violent crime and drug cases. The big drug gangs we have groups of guys generally working together. So imagine this: one offender gets stopped, either arrested in a drug bust or even a traffic stop with a firearm. That firearm is legally seized, and then that firearm is a ballistics analysis is done in that firearm. And then what happens is you'll often find out that firearm is linked to shell casings recovered from 3, 4, 5, 6 shootings, some homicides, because this weapon's been passed around. And so that all comes from ballistics testing. That all comes from crime labs. So linking these offenders and these offenses is an unbelievable tool for these folks.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. On to body cameras. Superintendent Ferguson, how have body cameras changed policing practices at NOPD? And Sheriff Lopinto, how is the rollout of body cameras going at JPSO?
So back in 2014, we started our body camera program. Of course, as with anything, human nature, you have those who are not very supportive of it, not knowing and thinking, officers that is, thinking that it would invade their privacy. But what they've learned over the years is, as a result of that body-worn camera, it has actually helped prove or disprove false allegations made against the officers themselves. So it has really turned out to be a plus for us. And it also gives us an opportunity when we have these critical incidents, when we have these unfortunate engagements with some of our community members, we're able to actually give a reality, give credibility to what actually occurred during that interaction, meaning an officer involved shooting or something like that, and paint that picture. And we are able to speak ourselves and not let someone else speak from a cell phone as to what they think they saw. We're able to see, this is what this officer saw, this is why he or she did what she did. So it is very, very critical with regards to the protection of the officer, but it also is very critical when we are conducting investigations, when investigators may not catch something or capture something during the course of the investigation. Reviewing that body-worn camera footage allows them to see who and what was on that scene at that time.
You know, we have tested body cameras for years. We rolled them out in November, the end of November of this year. They got rolled out within a week. The only thing that's holding us up right now is our vehicle cameras. Our vehicle cameras just came in probably about a month ago. We have not only dash cameras, but also cage cameras going in another 277 of our units. What's going to be a pretty good game changer for us is each one of those dash cameras is going to also be an ALPR camera, an automatic license plate recognition camera. So, you know, where in the past we only had our 200 automatic license plate recognition cameras at stagnant positions around the parish. Now we'll have 277 roving cameras that are around. Those are being put into the vehicles, but let's be real, it's happening probably 2 or 3 a day, you know, to do that. Right now we just got 40 new cars in, so they're going into the new cars. So as that happens, those are rolling out, and then we'll have people coming in, making appointments and putting them in. So they'll take a little bit longer to get all the cage cameras and dash cameras into the vehicles. But body cameras have been fully operational since November.
Okay, great. We have a number of questions related to respect for police officers and trust. So I'm just going to pick one of them. How can we bring back trust and confidence in police officers in the most difficult neighborhoods? Difficult neighborhoods, it says. And that's for both of you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll start just because I have the numbers from it. We have the respect of our community if we allow them to have the voice to be able to tell us that that's the case. You know, I'm the face of JPSO. There's never a time that I walk to whether it's a crime scene, whether I walked into a grocery store, whether I'm walking, when I got out of my car, ladies say, "Hey, Sheriff, how you doing?" I'm the face of JPSO. And so I get it nonstop that, you know, men and women are doing a great job. But I can also prove it from this last millage that we just passed. I don't care what city you're in. I don't care what area you're in. You can be in Marrero, you can be in Harvey, you can be in Kenner, you can be in River Ridge. Every single area of this, of the Jefferson Parish voted overwhelmingly in the high 60% for this millage to support our officers, right? And so, again, if you let the minority scream loud and tell you that we don't have the respect on social media and that's what you want to believe, fine and dandy. But the truth of it is we have the respect of our community, of the citizens that are sitting here in the room at 8 o'clock in the morning and the people that are out there on the street. We just have to allow them to have a voice to be able to say it.
I mean, I think the sheriff has said it all. I mean, the support is there. It's just a matter of speaking to that support. What we have not seen over the last couple of years, what we have seen is that minority to speak loudly. But the vast majority of our community is very much in support of law enforcement. But we just need them to speak to that. The social media has really changed the game when we talk about policing, when we talk about communication. I mean, you all in here, you don't have time to be on social media because you're in here. Mm-hmm. But those who aren't doing anything, they're on social media, and it speaks volumes. And unfortunately, that has overtaken everything, taken over every ear, and become the voice of the people, when in reality it is not the voice of the people.
Great. We also have several questions about recruiting. Please discuss the current tactics to recruit locally. What is your biggest challenge to recruiting local applicants besides perception? And that's for both of you.
Well, we're in New Orleans. We just started, thanks to our partnership with the New Orleans Police and Justice Foundation. We've started some radio edits and commercials to try to really reach out to our local community to get them involved. Also, using our recruiters. Just this past week, last week, when we graduated our recruits from Class 194, I emphasized to them how they are our ambassadors. They are our voice. They are our recruiters as well. So it's what they are doing is what it is that they are saying, and they become those recruiters themselves. We are the recruiters ourselves as the leaders of these agencies, and we have to do a better job in ensuring that we pull your voice to be heard in a positive manner that would allow the locals to be a part of this agency.
I think it's another big problem that we overlook pretty often is how we're set up in law enforcement. Think about a bank teller. You're hiring a bank teller here, and someone comes in today and process the application, and okay, we can start you in 2 weeks. Someone comes in to me right now and says, I want to be a policeman. I take the application. All right, my next academy is going to start in October. They have options in between, especially in an environment that we are, right? But I just started an academy 2 weeks ago, and at the best, I'm doing 2 academies a year. And so you're either starting in April or you're starting in October. I can offer you a job in the correctional center right now for the next 6 months to give you the ability to, have that. But the truth of it is it's an academy, by nature is going to be a group of individuals going through starting at an individual time. So it's harder to take someone that just got out of high school, just got out of college, and saying, okay, I want to be a policeman now. I need to start paying my bills, and okay, we'll see you in 6 months. And so that it's certainly a recruiting problem. That's something that we overlook pretty often of how we're just set up in law enforcement.
Okay. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you, Superintendent Ferguson, Sheriff Lopinto, and Jim Letten. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks again to First Horizon Bank for its generous sponsorship of this breakfast briefing, and thanks to all of you for being with us. A recording of today's breakfast briefing will be available on our website, bgr.org. It will also be rebroadcast on WWNO New Orleans Public Radio next Thursday, May 19th at 9 p.m. We hope this event has been informative and that we'll see you again at future BGR events. Watch for our new round of research reports in the coming months. Please follow us on social media and have a terrific day. Thank you.
Well, you guys are absolutely wonderful, and thanks for and your people too.